Well, welcome back to another episode of Behind the Agency. Today, I have with me Chris LaFay. You are the founder and CEO of Classic City, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Dave. I am excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, we've talked before, and what you've done is really interesting to me. When we talked before, you mentioned that you ran an agency from like 2016 to 2019, and kind of followed a lot of the sort of popular advice, um, but that it kind of shifted. Like you've pretty dramatically shifted kind of how you approach growing your agency in the years since. Can you talk a little bit more about kind of maybe what you felt didn't work before and what you're shifting to now and kind of the collective model?
Yeah. So I've been in the web design and development industry since I've been in elementary school. And so there's kind of been four phases of the business. I'm not going to dive into all of them. Will not be here for 5 hours describing all of them. But kind of the pre 2016 was more just freelancing effectively.
Mm-hmm.
2016 to 19 was kind of that first attempt at business growth, kind of using normal like practices that you hear about, as a 20 something year old person with no experience actually being inside of an agency or working within a company like that to see how the sausage is made, just kind of based off kind of what you hear. And then phase 3 was kind of the 2019 through 2025, and then we have kind of what's going on starting in 26. In 16 to 19, during that phase was kind of the first foray into actually being a business, and I had money in the bank. And what do you do when you're a freelancer with money in the bank? You delegate all of your responsibilities and you pay people full-time salaries, right? Right? No, you don't. But that's just kind of what I heard. And like you have money, you hire full-time people. You try to delegate tasks as much as you possibly can to free you up for doing salesy things. In the name of delegation and growth, you kind of what I did is I accidentally kind of hired on a hope. I hired on a hope that I would do more sales, that I would understand how to do lead generation. I would understand how to do these things, but I didn't have any guardrails around me during that time. I didn't have agency advisors or mentors or people that I knew that have been even not even just like one or two steps farther than me, even just like once like alongside of me at the same place.
Right.
I didn't have those then. And so shock of all shocks, we lost all of our money. I don't know how it happened over a 3-year period. You would think that would have happened much faster than that. But it took about 3 years. And then we kind of shifted, kind of moving into that next phase where I had advisors, I had mentors. I found people that had been farther along than where I've been, and really kind of got back to the roots of the business of like, I delegated everything out way too quickly. You don't hire on a hope. Not in most cases. There's obviously businesses that are larger that can take financial risks and hire on a hope with the idea that these things are going to happen. But for a lot of smaller agencies and smaller companies where bank accounts aren't nearly as large, that's a lot harder to do. And so kind of scaled back, started doing some more of the work myself, got more into the weeds of it, and then started over kind of that 2019 through 2025, delegating out the right aspects of what to do. Try to get, I'm a terrible project manager. So I took the person that had been running the business alongside of me over the last 3 or 4 years. And she was like, I'm interested in project managing. Let me not just do bookkeeping. Let me start managing projects. I've seen you do this for like 3 or 4 years now. I can do this. Gave her that responsibility. Hired on a part-time contract developer to help kind of take on some of the overload that I had when I got too busy. Hired a contract part-time designer to help out when things got busy, and started puzzle piecing those things together in a logical way. And that is what helped expedited growth, is we didn't have this huge overhead for a number of years. And that's what really helped us be nimble kind of in that phase 2 of kind of rebuilding the business starting in 2019.
Cool. Well, I mentioned like the collective model, Can you, just for people who are like not familiar, what all does that entail? Is that like kind of a mix of full-time and contractors? Can you kind of unpack that a little bit?
I've realized over the years that I personally thrive when I get to kind of draft my team, if you will, and be able to be like, hey, here's a project that comes in. How do we need to accomplish this? And so for a while, I had full-time people kind of in every slot. If you will, and my company was never super large, so we had just the right people at just the right amount of time to do those things. And so I relied less and less on contract folks. And I realized that my specialty and what I really enjoy doing is crafting those teams. And I like working with freelancers because a lot of them are very entrepreneurial. So they're game to try new things and to work on new things and to structure things. And there's this interesting camaraderie that comes out with that. And so the idea of honing down into this collective starting in this year for me is the idea that at the moment, I'm kind of actually kind of going back to kind of some 2019 thoughts of like, what full-time employees do I need to have? And I really like this idea of basically having this collective of 2 or 3 different designers that have different kind of angles and styles and structures that they take on design, 2 or 3 developers that have different angles and structures on how they tackle dev. Maybe some of those are WordPress, some of those are Shopify, a project manager, and a couple of other like strategic leads that can kind of sit in that discovery phase with clients to figure out what problems are we solving and then how are we going to solve them. Right. And then I have that core of people who are all doing this professionally full time. They're not like double dipping and only moonlighting and only working past 8 p.m. or whatnot, to where when I get a project, I have a quick call and I'm like, hey, we got this project that's right up your alley. Let's do it. And the answer 90% of the time is yes. And I know that's a little like, I know a lot of folks that have grown agencies with full-time employees, and it's definitely a thing. Like, I'm not suggesting that it's wrong to do, but for me and my personality and the crew that I have a lot of folks that are really gung-ho on doing projects, or if when retainers come in doing work on a consistent basis, that's also fine. Yeah. But when you have that core there that's really good at what they do, keep it as nimble as possible for as long as possible. Because once you kind of go into that full time and that guaranteed money sort of space, as a business owner, there's this level of stress that pops in that now your minimum to survive is that much higher. Now.
Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Like, you're not just trying to pay for your own bills. You're now covering somebody else's bills and promising that, really. That's hard. Well, yeah. I guess related to that, we're talking about kind of the service delivery side of things, but in order to get to the service delivery side of things, you have to have the growth, the new business coming in the first place. I know you've tried all sorts of different sort of agency growth tactics. How do you think about that today? I mean, it sounds like you've kind of landed on something that you're more comfortable with these days. Can you describe that and kind of unpack it?
Yeah. So as the business was growing revenue wise from like 2019 through 2023, give or take, year over year revenue was scaling. A lot of that was on referrals. Like, we actually grew the business 30 or 40% year over year during that period of time, off the backs of probably maybe 4 to 6 different of our agency partners. Now, obviously, referrals and things are kind of like roots of a tree, right? You can look backwards multiple times through and kind of look up the genealogy tree, if you will, of how those people got connected to us. But a lot of those projects and that work that came in were off of unintentional referral motions. I'm pretty decent about keeping in touch with folks. Like, I'm a very personal person. I build rapport with people very quickly. I like to deep dive with agency owners. That kind of opens up the door. Like, if you're willing to talk about finances and screw ups, right off the bat, you can pretty much dive deep wherever with people. And that's kind of my MO. And so I built a lot of relationships quickly, but I wasn't good over those period of time of staying in touch with folks. And there's a very common refrain in agency life of like, referrals are great. And it's great to be able to say, we're a word of mouth agency. But if you're not intentional about it, it could dry up like this.
Right.
And obviously any sales related or lead gen related effort, it's a roller coaster ride, no matter what you're doing. But what I learned about myself over the last year and a half or so is that I do genuinely like partnering up with other agencies. It's my favorite thing to do. Mainly because the sales process, when there's a client that could mutually, be mutually benefited by two agencies working together, that sales process isn't really a sales process. It's like, oh, our agency that we already have a relationship, trust these guys, let's go, done.
Yeah.
And I like that. So even though you can't really plan ahead for those things, my thinking is that if over a 3 or 4 year span where my network was about this small and it produced the ability to grow by 30 or 40% year over year, what would happen if I am intentional about creating valuable opportunities for my agency partners? And that's not going to necessarily be through referrals. Like, we don't get a ton of like cold inbound leads for SEO and PPC or this, that, and the other. So what are unique ways that I can provide value to folks at scale to make sure that I'm staying top of mind and being like, oh, Chris, he helped me with blah, 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 whatever that thing was.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my idea going into this year is if my book of referrals can increase from 6 to 20, it's going to take some time. It's not going to grow overnight. We're not going to grow tenfold in the next 6 to 8 months. But what if we lay all this groundwork here now, while the business is a little bit smaller, it's a little bit nimbler, we should be able to kind of ride that growth wave again in the next year or two with a lot of really good rapport building and a lot of really interesting agency activities working together with people. So I'm putting a lot of my eggs in the community basket of let's go out and do something valuable together, even if that's not me sending you a project.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think at the end of the day, agency work is still heavily a relationships business. So the more you can kind of admit that and lean into it, the better. I was curious, just for people who maybe like they've heard from many other people that like partnerships is something that's worthwhile to do, but they're not even sure like what the playbook looks like. What have you found works? 'Cause, I mean, just as an example, in agencies that I've been in, there's always like this is somebody who, either reached out to us or we reached out to them to explore a partnership. And both sides are like, yeah, this sounds great. Like, let's have a referral agreement. And we both say, yeah, we'll give each other this percentage if you send us business, something like that. And then it just kind of sits on the shelf and gets dust, and, nothing really comes of it because both sides are waiting for the other side to make the first move. So I guess it sounds like you've probably cracked that nut a little bit. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that?
And I'm actively trying to figure out. So that is the hardest part for me is that because I know going into this with the type of opportunities that come my way, I'm not going to have as much to give out. So this is my thinking going into this year. And so these are things that I'm actively trying. One is late last year, I hosted what I called a content day. I got a startup video crew around where my town is in Georgia, set up at a co-working space and put 16 30-minute time slots from 9 to 5 p.m. on the calendar for people to sign up for. And I blasted out saying, hey, a lot of agency founders want to create content for themselves, but never make the time. Well, here's your time. I have a video crew. I got mics. Let me know what 3 or 4 questions you want me to prompt you with off camera. And I will ask you those while you're on camera. And then in about 2 weeks, I'll send you over clips of all the different things that you just talked about so that you can either have video content for your website, blog posts, social media, whatever it is, get a little kind of kickstart into January. I figured, I live in the suburbs, and I was like, I'm going to host this near my hometown and just see who will actually drive out to the suburbs to come and see me. I figured that, 6 or 7 people would take me up on it. We had all 16 slots filled within about 24 hours. And on the day, only 2 people canceled last minute. So we did 14 out of 16 in one day, and everybody loved it. I sent out surveys. I have the data to say that people actually did enjoy it. It's not just my feelings. Those are the kind of things I'm trying to think about doing. Later this year, I'm hosting an agency owners get together in New York City with an agency partner. We all of us agency owners just like sitting around talking shop and seeing what, this person did or this person didn't do, what worked and what didn't. None of us really like conferences. So we're like, hey, let's take the after party, like hang out at the bar, and let's just turn that into like a full day thing of just hangouts around New York City. And so we're going to do that in April when it's decent weather to walk around Manhattan. I have an agency partner who wanted to co-host a content day with all of her people. And I was like, I will gladly co-host a content day with you, split the cost of the content day, and be able to meet 16 of your friends and provide them value.
Yeah.
And so these are different ways I'm trying to think of, like, how do we get people in a room that are different, that I'm not meeting the same people over and over and over and over again, and providing something, whether that's value or a memory, that isn't just a check-in email.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the in-person element, I think, is pretty key in your story there too. Or at least like the getting to know somebody like face to face. It's one thing when things are happening kind of through the DMs or through Slack messages, like you can kind of get to know somebody that way, but I think you get to know somebody a lot better whether it's in person or through a video call. Probably person is even better than a video call, but I think that's really interesting. I think it really comes down to trust, right? I mean, in partnerships, are they going to refer somebody out if they don't know if they trust this other agency or this other partner? So I think if you can deliberately develop trust by kind of maybe being generous up front, it sounds like in your case, you're basically saying, hey, look, I'm going to provide some free value so that you remember me as the person who just kind of like helped you out. And, maybe down the road when the opportunity presents itself, you can help me out.
And that's where, like, also kind of in like a lead gen format, like websites are harder to do lead gen on. And what I mean by that is you like to have a foot in the door offer, right? Like you like to be like, hey, what's that thing that you can charge a very nominal cost for to get like a potential client's like foot in the door? And let's say that you can do something like, let's say you do like, you're a writer. Well, you might be able to write up write up something small. It doesn't have to be this humongous engagement. Web design and development, there really isn't a foot in the door offer. You're either going to design and develop out a website or you're not. Like, and it's not just like we can do part of it, you have to do the whole thing. And so thinking about how marketing dollar bills and how to spend marketing dollars is, I gave one of my coaches, that one of my advisors kind of gave me permission to spend marketing dollars on events. And I basically started to think about, a long time ago, the people would host events and kind of the poll would be like, we're getting a photographer and everybody gets a free headshot while they're here at the event. And that was a draw for a while because it provided value to that person. Now that doesn't matter nearly as much anymore. Also, this whole idea about content day and talking head videos, obviously we have an AI problem with that too. Hopefully meeting in person and shooting actual video content of real people doesn't die off, even if AI could replace it. We shall see. But there might be a horizon on that providing value at some point. And so rather than spending hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars on ads, why not find a way to get people in the room together? And I've known a couple of people that run communities, and one of the things that they've said over the years is when they bring people together in the room, because they've been doing it for so long, they're getting the same faces in the room all the time. They're not meeting anybody new. And so one of the things I want to really focus in on this year is how am I collaborating with my other agency partners to co-host things with them and allow them to bring in 70% of the audience and me bring in 30% of the audience. And that still be a good value for them in terms of splitting those marketing costs together.
Yeah.
And so it's just an interest. It's a different way of thinking about it. I don't know if it's going to win or not. Like, I don't know if it's going to be the nut that I cracked and it's a big thing and it's going to be how we grow the business over the next couple of years. I have no idea. I'm having fun though.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like it has a lot of the right ingredients. I remember one agency that I worked with, they had a really great recipe. So it was, multiple different agencies that all serve the same target market. And what they would do is they would do regional kind of like 1-day conferences.
Yeah.
And part of the deal was like, you could pay to sponsor, or you could get a discount on that sponsorship by inviting a number of your existing clients. So everyone brings, I don't know, 5-6 of their own clients. Each of the CEOs or whoever, somebody to speak on behalf of each of their companies. And since they're all complementary companies, no one's like, competing. And all the end, the clients are all basically getting kind of cross-pollinated with all the vendors or the providers. And so at the end, and you also have some of your existing clients there. So like if somebody's like, oh yeah, that talk was really interesting by so-and-so, I wonder what it's like to work with them. It's like, well, actually you can just go talk to Jeff over here. He is a client. And so it was a really effective way to kind of have one day and one speaking slot and get a lot of high value conversations real quickly.
That is a really great idea. And that's kind of, it goes like hand in hand with the whole idea of like co-hosting like these content days. I have a couple of ideas that I haven't fully fleshed out yet about the downside of the content day structure that I have now is that people are just kind of coming and going. You come in for your 30-minute slot, you leave. There isn't really any community building amongst the people that are there. So I have a few ideas around how to make that a little bit more community oriented. So obviously, yes, you as the person that's having video shot of you, you get value because you're getting video content at the end of the day. But also by attending, you also get to meet 2, 3, 4, 5 people, whatever that number happens to be, to kind of layer on and level up that value. And the idea of something I hadn't thought about is the idea of doing that with not just one partner, but actually expanding that to having it be a few and kind of building that out and making it be a little bit even larger than just that one thing. It's a very interesting idea, actually.
Yeah, and the nice
you're getting the wheels turning, man. I like it.
Well, like the nice thing about it too is that when you only have like 5 or 6 people who are sponsoring, you don't end up with more than like maybe 125 people there total. So it's very intimate. Like that's maybe sounds like a lot, but compared to some of the conferences and events that you can go to, like people go to 10,000 person events thinking they're going to use it for lead generation, and it's like, no, that's like going to be, it's like trying to go fishing in the middle of the ocean.
Right. Yeah.
So
the introvert in me is dying a little bit on the inside, thinking about a 10,000 person conference and be like, I'm just going to go stick to the back wall over there, glue myself to it, and I will survive this roller coaster somehow. So, yeah.
No, it's so much easier when it's a smaller event. Yes. Well, one thing I wanted to kind of circle back around to is you've decided to focus specifically on websites. I know different agency providers, like they might pick a particular vertical, or they might, say we can do websites or, software or whatever. Why did you pick websites, and what have you kind of seen from that so far?
Part of it is because I don't know how to focus. I probably have worked with 4 or 5 different advisors over the last 4 or 5 years. And that's not a number that I am proud of, mind you. I'm not proud of that. And it's my fault. It's like, hi, I'm the problem. It's me. Yeah, that's me. Is I can never focus down long enough to be like, we're going to go after higher education. We're going to go after the automotive industry. I can't, I can't stay focused there. And so we did marketing retainers and things like that for probably a couple of years during that growth, this most recent growth phase. And we did a good job. We did fine, but it was hard for us to tell that story. We were doing social media and ads and website work. It was hard. Each of those things in their own silos were doing fine, but we couldn't really tell the story between how they all interacted and connected with one another. And we lost traction there. So even though the ads we were running were making them money, we couldn't tell the story of like why we're making more updates and why we're making changes and why we need to shift budget from ads management to website management, because the ads are running well, but now we need to be investing more in conversion rate optimization on the website, et cetera, et cetera. It just didn't work. And so I saw a lot of my friends that run agencies start ditching website work and start narrowing down to kind of where they wanted to focus, whether it was branding or SEO or PPC. And people were trying to leave kind of web behind because it's complicated. It's not easy. Every website's built differently. It's not simple. And that was part of the push towards doing it. Is I was like, if people are leaving this stuff behind and not really wanting to do it within the confines of their own agency, that in of itself could be a differentiator. And don't get me wrong, I realize there's a bazillion people that can build you a website. I totally know that. There's 10 of us on every corner in Atlanta. But that's okay. And so my thinking was that if we drop all the marketing stuff, and especially if we go to this more collective style group that I've had for years and really lean into that collective, obviously websites are a little bit more project based. There's not as many companies out there that need multi-$1,000 a month retainers to help actually grow their website over time. You either need an hour of maintenance or you need legit help. There's really no middle ground in terms of like web recurring revenue. But if we kept building really good sites and we were able to add a retainer on once a quarter, once every 6 months or so, and kind of slowly start making those stack up, that felt like a repeatable business model to me. And so, and it's more in line with kind of the flow that I personally like, which is not the exponential growth. It's not the linear growth on such a steep curve, not curve, but a steep linear path. Right. So it's a good middle ground. And so I like how web kind of interacts with all parts of the creative process, from content to development to design. And I'm hoping to kind of lean more into kind of some weird websites this year. I'm hoping that like a lot of websites right now look the same. I would love there to be this like influx of texture on sites to where the visuals of it actually make you think, oh, that's actually really different. Because now in an AI world where questions can be answered in 5 seconds, more so than Google, people are more ready to purchase when they visit a site. And so if we can give them a reason to think, oh, that's interesting, that's just a nice little mental +1 on whatever company that is.
Yeah. I think that's a really important insight, just like seeing what other people were kind of moving away from, or maybe they're specializing somewhere else. And you're just like, well, this is an opportunity to specialize in the thing that none of them want to do. So, and actually come to think of it, you know, if you're going to be specializing there and you know that they're specializing elsewhere, then those are all people that you can refer out to for some of those other services that you decided to phase out of. So it just kind of reinforces that partnership sort of approach where it's like, hey, you know, that thing you used to do, but you still probably need, you know, somebody in your Rolodex for, like, we can do that.
And a lot of those marketing agencies are growing. Like I keep tabs with the owners and the founders, and they are actively growing. It's interesting as you watch the more and more narrowed the focus the faster the growth happens to be. And obviously it's a small sample size. Like I'm in particular thinking about like 4 or 5 in my mind right now, but they're all the people that have stripped away a lot of those auxiliary services and said, this is the one thing that we're doing. This is our one scope of work. These are all of our standard operating procedures, and we are going forward with this. Their sales cycles are a lot smaller. It's fantastic. And so, the idea is, hey, you build good friends, you do good work, you work with cool people. Good stuff tends to happen when you run in traffic like that. It's a terrible metaphor, but it's what my brain went to. So here we are. If you run in traffic long enough, you'll eventually get hit. Hopefully by the good cars, not the bad cars.
I like it. Well, speaking of that, you have a test drive offer.
Such a great segue. That was beautifully done.
Yeah. What's that? So that's kind of like your intro offer, your foot in the door thing, right?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit more about like maybe why you decided to do that and kind of just kind of unpack that.
Yeah. So I was talking about foot in the door offers a little bit before, and it's, as an agency, it's always been hard for me to figure out what that thing is, because you can't really divide a website up into small chunks that either you're doing it all or you're not doing it at all. And so one of the things that I've heard a handful of times over the last year or so are 2 things, actually, not 1, 2. One of them is these brands go through this agency selection process that takes months and months and months and months. At the end of the day, what I've heard from folks that we've won bids from is like, we just don't really know what we're getting into until we actually like start the freaking work. And a lot of these brands have larger budgets that are spending months and months on agency searches. On the flip side, and actually kind of connected to that, is we've actually won back a couple of projects. We were kind of the number 2 selection. We lost. I followed back up with them a couple months later and said, hey, how's the process going? Being like, cheery, nice and good guy. And they were like, actually, this sucks. Can we come back and work with you? We're like, yes, please. We'll take you back. Not even take you back. We didn't even start, but again, the same thing, the same problem was we didn't know what we were getting into until we got started. We got passed off to the B team. We got sold by the A team and got passed off to the B team. And so my thinking is that this kind of test drive offer that I'm at the moment calling the prototype, we'll see if that name sticks or even if the structure of it sticks. Everything's a test at the end of the day, is that we'll basically just design out a homepage in 2 weeks for a relatively small amount of dollar bills. And if you like it, great. We'll take the cost of the prototype and we'll subtract it off from the full build price and we can continue moving forward. My thinking was that if the company is large enough to go out and be bidding multiple agencies against each other and things like that, we have good design work that we do. The worst case scenario is you pay the few $1,000. We give you the Figma files and all of our notes, and you can go off on your merry way, and you have a launching pad at that point. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to break the budget. On the flip side, for our agency partners, it might be an easy way for us to start working together with them a little bit more. A lot of the agency people that I know do not have designers on their team. And so my thought is, if their clients needed a new landing page design, or they wanted to kind of be proactive and be like, hey, your website's 4 years old now, you might want to think about a redesign. We should go do this thing. Would be an easy kind of low stakes thing to get in the door with partnering with other agencies with, especially on the branding side of things. A lot of the branding agencies that I know don't do web. And so maybe this is a good bridge to go from logo and new aesthetic design into what does a new website look like. And so I tried to check off as many of the boxes I could, kind of with what that foot in the door offer would look like. And I have a couple of different pages that talk about it, just with different angles to it, that kind of talk about different types of clients, whether you're a branding agency, an SEO agency, or an end client. It's all the same product at the end of the day, just kind of twisted a little bit differently. Yeah. And so far I've gotten a couple of bites on it, which is great. I love it. We have one client that's in the proposal stage and one client that will hopefully be in the proposal stage next week. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But for the first try at building a legitimate foot in the door offer, to have two folks bite on that almost simultaneously was a really validating feeling. I'm not going to lie. And
Yeah.
so we'll see how that morphs and evolves over time, because I'm definitely not tied down to that one thing either.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've had the same experience. I think a big part of why those foot in the door offers are so effective is that it de-risks working with you, right? So like somebody's thinking, oh, the price tag, if it's a dev agency, it's going to be, at least 6 figures, or if it's a website, it's going to be at least maybe 5 figures, like we're talking 10K or more. And so, but if they're like, well, how do I know what I'm going to get? I don't want to spend that much money and then realize I've made such a huge mistake. Whereas if you start with something that's like, hey, you know what? Let's just do step one. And if you like how everything worked, then we can talk about 2, 3, and 4. And it's amazing how much that's like, oh, especially if none of the other competition is doing something like that, you're going to stand out as like, oh, you know what? These are the only folks that we can actually test drive, that we can try before we buy. And I think that's a big part of why it works. I actually have like a little sprint offer that I built into what I do up front. And so far, every single person who's done the sprint has signed on for some sort of retainer after that. So call me a true believer. So
this is the first time that we put real dedicated effort into doing it. And what has been interesting is most of the outbound stuff we've done has been more, honestly, it's mostly been just kind of shotgun blasting on my personal LinkedIn page for stuff. But I've actually had people tell me, who I didn't intentionally seek after, like, oh yeah, you're doing this like design thing now, right? I was like, yes, something is actually being seen, which is fantastic. And so I know that at least there's movement in that area. And I don't think I'm doing all the motions correctly, and I don't think I'm doing enough of them, but the quantity of those motions and also kind of hitting the most people is definitely at an all-time high for the solo founders lead generation efforts at the end of the day. So
yeah,
yeah,
no, for sure. Well, there's one other thing I wanted to cover before we wrap up, and that was, if you go to your website, your pricing is very transparent. You're upfront about like, hey, for this type of website, you're probably going to look at, it's going to be around this, that sort of thing. I know a lot of people debate whether to include pricing at all. What have you found? I mean, and maybe why did you decide to do that in the first place? But also, what have you seen from doing that?
So a couple of things. So one of the things that drives me nuts is that I do a sales call with folks, and I really like helping people out. It's one of my like favorite things to do. So like I'll be on a call with somebody for like 45 minutes or an hour and be like, how can we help you? How can we figure this out? How? And the very end, it's like, hey, our pricing starts at around $15,000. We sometimes go a little bit less than that depending on what's needed, but it's kind of our anchor price point. And like, oh, we have 2. Well, I don't care what value I'm going to provide you. If your budget's $2,000 and we're going for 15, like I'm not going to get you to pay 8x the budget that you had in mind, unless I can just like promise you rainbows and butterflies and dollar bills flying in from the clouds. Just not going to happen. And so I was like, you know what? Screw it. I don't care. Like I would much rather be upfront. And so the second at the time of this recording, because I do view my website as an experimentation tool, it's the second section. It's like right here. It's simple pricing, simple structures, and it's overly simplistic. Like I know that it is. There's a link below those baseline price points that actually like take you down to like a full-blown table that kind of looks like a software as a service table, with like checkboxes and X's on different features and whatnot. And while it's not exhaustive by any stretch of the imagination, it's solid 75%, which isn't bad. And I've actually had a couple of calls with folks that I did not know. And as we were talking through the scope of what their website would be and things like that. So they're like, okay, so based on what I hear you saying, Chris, it sounds like I kind of fall between like the $15,000 and $25,000 price. I'm like, yes, you're on my homepage right now. Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And they're actively like, the entire structure of the homepage is what a proposal is. I actually told that to a client recently, where I was like, yeah, you fall right in at this lowest tier offer. There's no reason for you to go to like the medium or the high. And I was like, here's the homepage. Let me walk you through. And he's like, is there a proposal? I'm like, I can put one together for you, but it's literally going to look exactly like this. Like, it's just going to have this one with a big old giant checkbox next to it. Because everything on the homepage is what has been in a proposal in the past. And that level of simplicity makes those conversations so much easier. And I basically just took every question, not every question, but a lot of the questions that I get after sales calls are over and just funneled it all on there. Is it long? Is it lengthy? Yes, it is. Are everybody going to read every word on that homepage? No, they're not. That's okay. I would rather have too much information with calls to action thrown throughout, so that people can kind of choose their own adventure and learn about whatever they want to learn more about, than have too little information and not be clear and maybe have to answer the same question 25 times and then get surprised later.
But at least, I mean, the nice thing about focusing, you focus on websites, you got rid of all those other services. It's a lot easier for you to include transparent pricing, because you can just be like, you know what? Here are like the 3 general buckets that people fall into, rather than if you had all those additional services, it would be like, and here's this much for this thing and this much for this thing. 100%. And you have to say a lot more of like, oh, it depends, which I think scares some people sometimes, if they're on a sales call with you. So it really just, I think the simplicity thing that you mentioned is really huge, and maybe underappreciated in the agency space.
I like that phrase. I hadn't actually thought about that one. Like, we're trying to remove the "it depends" out of the agency lingo. I like that. I hadn't thought about that before. I might have to find a way to weave that into some homepage headline content, because I know that's something that people absolutely hate hearing. I've heard it before of like, why does everything depend? I mean, I understand why, but like, can we like get down to the brass tacks a little bit? Like, give me at least enough information to make an educated decision. So,
yeah, I mean, I think complexity is usually what leads to the "it depends" thing. And so the more you can like remove that complexity, the better. So
I had a person text me last week, and it's somebody, now granted, it's somebody that I know decently. I don't talk a lot about business stuff. And he shot me a text last week and was like, hey, I looked at your website, 15,000. We're looking for a new site now. 15K sound about right for what you know about my business? I was like, 100% yes. Fastest sale that I've ever made. Now, obviously, I know the guy, so it's not it's not fair to anchor in on that. It's like, it's the testimonial that everybody knows is not actually true. It's like, I sold. It's like an advisor or a coach. Learn how to sell a product in less than 5 minutes via text message. And you like screenshot the text message and be like, this guy sold it without even having to have one conversation. Like, it's a lie. Don't get me wrong. It's out of context, but he was able to self-select. He was able to figure it out even without actually talking to me about it. And
that's what they get to filter themselves out. Like, you have somebody, that 2K potential client, can be like, oh, you know what? This is not the right agency for us to work with. So yeah, it saves both people a lot of time. Yes. So, well, Chris, this has been super fun, super interesting, and I think super valuable for the people who are going to watch it. For people who either need a website or who maybe just want to talk shop with you as a fellow agency owner, what's the best way for people to find you and interact with you?
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn, Chris LaFay. I'm pretty sure I'm the only Chris LaFay on LinkedIn. So if you find me, you probably figured it out. Also, classiccity.com for the longest homepage of an agency that you'll probably ever see that has all the information that you ever want to know before you actually schedule a call and talk. So if you want all the details, it's there. You'll be there for a minute, but it's there.
I mean, I went there and I feel like it was it may have been long, but it didn't feel long because there was lots of important details as you go down the page. So
I took a lot of notes from the guys that run Basecamp. The Basecamp founders like write all their own content on their homepage as if it's them talking to the end client. And I was like, I really like that idea. So I wrote every sentence in the way that I would have not verbally said it, but basically. So
yeah, absolutely. That's a good way to approach it. Mm-hmm. Well, thanks again, Chris. Looking forward to seeing you around online.
Likewise, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.